Welcome back to Meg's Mysteries. This story is called The Locked Door Mystery. Sometimes in life, you meet or are paired up with someone you can connect with, and immediate knowledge that this person will get you, no questions asked. Well, that is how it was with us. I am Lieutenant Amanda Morse, and I have a new partner, the famous Detective Harrison Stonefield. He says, "Call me Harry," when we were introduced. He was much older and already a seasoned detective. And I just got my lieutenant stripes. It'll be our first case together, and it will not be our last. We were called in by the chief and the mayor on an early morning of the 5th of November, 1950. A well-known writer was found dead. This alone will bring a mystery to solve, but the real big mystery of it was how she was found. Died in a locked room alone with a letter opener in her back. So it must be murder, no chance of suicide. The strange thing was the room was locked from the inside. This will be an interesting case. Let's begin. Faraday Medley. She was a writer of Gothic novels and love stories. Her best friend, Melena Marsh, was concerned when she didn't hear from her. She called and the housekeeper answered. Marlena said, "I was worried. She was to meet me last night around 7 at the Stork Club. She stood me up again. I was angry, and I called her when I got home, but there was no answer." The housekeeper said, "I went to bed early, and she was in her office working, and she did not want to be disturbed, but I'll go check her now." Mrs. Belmont, the housekeeper, told her, "She retired early that night, but as always sent me to clean up and don't bother her. She had a habit of locking the office door to do some work on her latest storyline. I never saw her again, so I knocked on the door and there was no answer. She usually yells at me to leave her alone. She never liked to be disturbed in person or on the phone, so there's no phone in the office. When Miss Marlena called in the morning, I went to check on her, but no answer. That's when the housekeeper and Marlena got worried and the police were called in. Then she told us what happened. We also arrived at the scene later. The housekeeper told us when she didn't answer me, I got nervous. I tried the door, but it was locked from the inside, like she always did while she was working. That's when I called the police and Miss Marlena came by." Marlena tells the police. "The police came right away because I couldn't get in and the housekeeper was concerned for her mistress. She told them she must be in dire trouble. The police arrived and they had to break down the heavy wooden door. And there in a chair was Faraday Medley, dead with a letter opener jammed in her back. Her latest story page was on the typewriter. Only the title was typed. Let it all out. Notes were written in her hand with names and dates, but not fictional characters like her other stories, but real people. She was writing a tell-all book. Maybe she dug up some dirt that someone didn't want dug up. But that doesn't explain how it was done. The door was locked from the inside, and no one entered the house that the housekeeper would see. She has a room right in front of the house by the entrance, and she's a very light sleeper." "What a puzzle we have, Lieutenant Morris," said Harry. I said, "We'll crack it. I have a feeling." We both knew what I meant. Even though we just got together, we knew right off this partnership would work. You see, Detective Harris Stonefield and I have something in common. We both get feelings. When I was younger, I always had premonitions and dreams that came true. I called them my feelings. I felt that Harry had the same thing. He called his strange daydreams. He got them when something hinky was happening. And this time we both felt it as soon as we entered the home of Faraday Medley. It was an old brownstone in the best part of New York, the upper class. Her last lover, Andre, left it to her in his will, along with all his money and possessions. The housekeeper, Mrs. Belmont, who was his longtime housekeeper, was included in the deal. She was too old to go find a placement. She came with the place. We found out Mrs. Belmont had no love for her new employer, but had nowhere else to go, and she loved the house. Plus, she was paid handsomely. She told us Faraday could be mean and nasty, a very nasty woman. She stepped on many toes to climb the ladder of success. She only has one best friend, Marlena Marsh. Sometimes she even treats Marlena just as bad, like her pet, to do her bidding, when she wanted her around, and dismissed her when she didn't. We were examining the crime scene. The room looked like nothing out of the ordinary. Only the body was dead giveaway. It was murder, all right. A knife in the back gives it away. Oh, I mean a letter opener. But that did the trick. The list of possible suspects was growing as we investigated her life. One of the officers noticed a scrap piece of paper by the fireplace. It looked like a page from an old diary. Just a partial piece of a letter. The rest was burnt. It could be M, N, or A, the first letter or last name. We had the room sealed off when they removed the body. We'll see what we can find later after the autopsy. We went into the room to see what else we can find. Harry and I had a feeling at the same time. Maybe a secret passageway opening up from the walls. It was an old building, and some had hidden ways in and out. I was knocking on the walls, and Harry was checking out the bookcase for a lever or some clue on how someone can get in and out of a locked room and no one will see them, kill, and then just disappear. Harry said sometimes these old buildings were used for illegal practices and had hidden escape routes in all parts of the house. We were told it had other owners beside Andre and Faraday. He bought it from a well-known mobster's girlfriend, the Vincenzo family. Louise L'Amour was Anthony Vincenzo's girlfriend. She lived here till she died. Also, Mrs. Belmont had worked for her when she was very young. She told one of the officers herself. She worked for her and Andre before Miss Medley came on the scene. Andre used to boast and tell stories of the last owner's connection to the mob families. He was happy to have a historic home with a dark side, even if the place was used for illegal practices. He even said he found some info and proof of who and what happened there, dates and names. That is what the housekeeper told us, and Miss Marlena confirmed it. Andre used to love to tell us those stories and said it would all come out soon, but he never had a chance. He died. I remember Faraday would egg him on to tell her the story, but he said, "All in good time, my dear." So she was left everything in the will, even his information and diary. She would say, "Not bad for a small-time nothing girl. Now I have everything I want, prestige, money, and a grand home." When she heard he left her everything, she bragged to anyone who would listen. So what do we have here? Maybe a hidden passageway? Mob information some people wouldn't like to get out in the open? Or is it hurt feelings? She had been mean to her, even her best friend and the housekeeper. The housekeeper had no love for her. That is what we have to work with. The list of suspects. Andre. We know he was dead, but maybe his ghost, if you believe in those things. Marlena Marsh, a trusted friend, who was dismissed at whim. Maybe even jealous of the life Faraday inherited. Maybe she loved Andre too. The housekeeper, Mrs. Belmont, always around for Andre, also worked for the original owners, who she adored. She had no use for her present employer and had nowhere else to go. She was stuck here. The mob. Maybe someone found out about the tell-all book. Faraday was bragging about it to everyone who would listen. She had all Andre's info and proof. Maybe the book was her doom. We're almost ready to give up the search in the room for some opening in the wall. when Harry called to me, "Look what I found." And he took a book down. It was on the top shelf. Mystery of the Dead Lady. How appropriate. Then the bookshelf opened up to a passageway, a tunnel under the house that led down to the park across the street, near the river's edge. It was a great way to get in and out for illegal practices. In those days, a lot of bootlegging and other smuggling were going on. We took a look in the tunnel. It had old barrels still filled with whiskey near them. And by them was the diary and files. The killer must have dropped or just left them here as he fled the scene. Maybe they thought they would never be found. The diary Faraday inherited had damaging info on many prominent people and mobsters that could hurt many families. So who did it? How do we tie it all together? When reading in the diary, I had one of my feelings, and at the same time, Harry said, "I know who did it." So who do you think? Did you guess? Did you find any of the clues? Okay, we'll fill you in. Mrs. Belmont worked in the house from the beginning. Also, she was raised as a young girl in the house. Her maiden name was Lamore. She was the niece of Louise Lamore, the girlfriend of the mobster, and she knew the family well and their goings-on. The house was a cover for a big-time smuggling ring, but she was dedicated to her aunt. As a young girl, she stayed there with her aunt, and when she was older, she married Mr. Belmont. Then he died, and she came back to work as a housekeeper for her aging aunt. She stayed with the new owner, Andre, when her aunt died, and he bought the house. She saw that Andre found papers and information on the mob family and her aunt's involvement with them, and she had to get rid of them. Now that Faraday had the house and all his possessions and was going to write a tell-all book about everything, it would put a lot of the family away. They had to be protected along with her aunt's reputation, so she had to go. It didn't hurt that she hated Faraday for just being a horrible person to all, including her. She knew the hidden passageway and used it to gain the access to the locked room. When the police took her away, she just smiled and said, "They both deserved it. Trying to make a name and money for ratting on the family and ruining my aunt's good name. They didn't care who they hurt to get ahead. I took care of Andre. He loved my beef Wellington. I used my special spices. And as for her, she deserved a stab in the back, like she did to so many people. I feel nothing but glad that she's gone." So she was found guilty of the 2 murders. The locked door mystery was solved. Case closed. Hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time on Meg's Mysteries, enjoy your evening.